Hi, Slangel here from Slangel Designs, and today I'm going to show you a fairly simple knitting tutorial for the basic dishcloth. So now this is probably one of the first things that when people are learning to knit that they give a try to, and it's because it's fairly straightforward. There's nothing too fancy with it. You'll see that there's some little holes here along the edge. Don't panic about that. That's just doing a yarn over. And I'll show you how to do that. It's pretty quick, pretty easy. So I have two samples here, and you'll see one's a little looser than the other because this was made with the Caron cotton cake, and it's a little softer, and they're both a 4-weight. The second one was the Bernat Handicrafter cotton. They're both a 4-weight, but now I find the Caron is a thin 4, so it's a little more narrow, and you can see there's a bit of a difference. Exact same pattern, just slightly different, but gauge doesn't really matter when you're making a dishcloth, okay? But again, fairly straightforward, and just happened to be this was a self-striping kind of colorway, and it just happened to be it almost did it right at the diagonal, so that worked out kind of neat. And I find their Bernat, I do like it better for the dishcloth because it's a little stiffer and it holds up a little better. Okay, so I did that in navy, but I have gray one to show you today because it's a little easier to see. So let me just set these to the side. I will have a PDF pattern available for you to download on the website. So just let me go over what you're going to need here. You're going to need, I use not quite the full of the Bernat Handicrafter cotton, which is a 1.75 ounce. Again, it's a 4-weight, and it recommends a 4.5 millimeter knitting needle or a 5 millimeter crochet hook, depending on how you're doing it. But I use a 5, which is a US 8. And again, I have that all listed on the PDF. So yeah, so we're gonna use that. Now, you're gonna want a US 8 or a US 7 knitting needle, which is a 5, the US 8 is a 5.0 millimeter, and the 7 is a 4.5. Now, you can use the straight needles if you'd like, but I'll tell you this, I find these when you're working on like a little bit of a smaller project, I find these long. So what I like to do is I have little double pointed needles. I think these are 14 or 16 inch. And these are 5.0 millimeter or the US 8. I like using these because they're smaller, and if I'm traveling or going somewhere and I want to take a little project with me, I just grab a couple balls of this and these, and you don't need to worry about everything sliding off or losing the needle or whatever. It's all in one. And the needle, I have small hands, and I find these are a little more manageable myself. And some people don't realize with the circular needles, the double pointed like this, you can do straight knitting. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the round, okay? So let's grab our yarn and grab our needles, and let's get into the tutorial here. So I always save my label so that I know what I need to pick up if I'm out. So let's find the end of this somewhere here. There we go. So you're going to cast on 4 stitches to begin with. Now, whichever method you want to do, the long tail cast on, here's my basic cast on. I make a slip knot onto my needle, just like that. Okay, let me show you again. I leave a fairly long tail because you're going to want to weave that in at the end, okay? I go over, I drape it over my fingers, over, put my needle through, hook that yarn, and then just pull it, all right? But again, you can put it on if you want to double knot it, as long as you've got your yarn on there, okay? So now, I have my tail on this side, so I don't, and I tend to hold the tail with my needle for the first little bit, just so I can keep track of it. Let me just loosen up some yarn here. So we're gonna cast on 4. So we have our first one on, that counts. Then we're going to put our hook, or hook, sorry, put our needle in, yarn over, pull up our loop, and then put that on to our working needle. We're going to put it in again, yarn over, bring our loop through. Did that yarn split on me? Yes. Why are we splitting? There we go. So there's 3. And 4. Okay, so you're going to start with 4, and this you were working, when you look at the pattern, you're working corner to corner, and you can tell which corners you're starting and ending at because they're a little more curved than the turning, than the halfway corners. Okay, so you've got your 4 on your needle. So for the first row, we're going to knit 4. So you're just going to knit the ones you have here. Again, make sure you don't use your tail as your working yarn, because then you have to undo what you've done. So we're going to yarn over, bring our needle through, and slide it off because we're putting it onto this needle. We're not casting on anymore. We're just knitting. So I'm going to go slow here until we get going. So that's row 1. You've knit 4. Then we're going to turn, put our stitches on our left hand, and we're going to put our working needle in our right. So for row 2, we're going to knit 2, and this is the start of the repeat pattern. Knit 2, then it says yarn over, and all that means is you've got your yarn here, bring that to the front as if you were going to be doing a purl. You're not. You're still going to do a knit, and you're going to knit the next one, and what happens is you're going to see that yarn ends up on that needle, and you're yarning over and doing your knit stitch. Now you've got 4 stitches already on your needle instead of the 3 that you worked. The yarn over is what makes this extra stitch. So that's an increase there, okay? But at the same time as it making the increase in the stitches, this is what's going to give us that little hole on the edge, okay? So then we'll knit our last one. Excuse me. So now we have 5 stitches on our needle. So we're going to swap needles in our hands, move our stitches over to our left, working needle on the right. We are going to literally repeat that row that we've just done, the knit 2, yarn over, and knit across until we have 48 stitches on the needle, okay? So you're going to insert your hook, make sure you're not grabbing your tail, yarn over the needle, do your knit stitch. So that's 1. Knit the second one. Then we're going to yarn over to bring it towards the front. Now you're going to find this next one, which is the yarn over from the previous row, a little looser, and that's fine. Don't panic. You're going to do your knit stitch. It's a little looser, but that's because you're making that hole in the edge, okay? And we're just knitting all the way across to the end. So let's do a couple more. So again, now we've got 6 stitches. We've done enough. Every time you do a row, you're increasing a stitch, okay? So we're going to knit 2, 1, 2, yarn over. So you're going to bring your yarn to the front, okay? We're going to knit. Again, that makes that loop over the needle to make that extra stitch and the little eyelet hole, and we're knitting. So you can see once you get this repeat pattern down, it becomes fairly quick, because all it is essentially is, other than the yarn over, is you're just straight up knitting. So again, needle goes in, yarn over and do a knit stitch, second knit stitch, yarn to the front, so yarn over, do a knit, and knit to the end. And that's another increase and another one of the holes. You can kind of start to see the holes in the edging starting to form as we're making our corner. So again, we're going to keep repeating this row. Let's get some more yarn here. We knit 2, yarn over, knit to the end of the row. And again, don't panic when you get to those yarn over parts when you're knitting them, that they're loose, because that's expected and that's what you want, because you're making, a little easier to see here now, you're making those holes there in the edging, okay? As well as increasing your stitches. So we've got 3, 6, we've got 9 stitches on our needle now. So we're gonna keep going with this until we get up to 48. So knit 2, bring your yarn to the front, so yarn over, and then knit to the end again. I love these double pointed needles, and these were not expensive. These little circular needles, I got them a whole set. I think there was 11 different sizes in it off Amazon for like 15 bucks. I love the metal because they're easier. Some yarns are a little harder to work with if you have the wooden ones. I find these slide very well. And I think you can see what I'm saying. Like if you're working in a small space, or if you're just sitting there, you don't want those big needles getting in the way. So a smaller project like this, I find these are perfect for it. All right, so knit 2, bring your yarn forward, so that's considered a yarn over, and then we're going to knit the rest of the stitches. So there's nothing really fancy stitch-wise in this. You're just doing a knit and then yarn over. When we get to the 48 stitches, I'll show you about knitting 2 together, because once you get to the halfway point, then you need to decrease to make your smaller part of the other half of the square. But we'll get to that. So I'll do another row with you here. We're going to insert our needle, do 2 knit stitches. So 1, 2, bring our yarn to the front, which is called yarn over, and then just straight up knit to the end of the row again. Sorry if you can hear the lawnmower out there. Somebody's cutting their grass in the neighborhood. It's been so hot that people are trying to get it done earlier in the mornings before the heat. We've had a heat warning. It's been like 40 degrees Celsius with the humidity. So I'm not sure, that's roughly 110 Fahrenheit. It's been pretty hot. All right, so you can see we've got the corner started there. Let me just set that down. So what you're gonna have to do is, we currently have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 stitches. You're gonna repeat that row 2 until you have 48 stitches on the needle. So if you wanna put me on pause, rewind if you need to. There's no harm in that if you need to watch it a couple times to get the gist of it. But do that until you get 48 stitches on your needle, and then press play again, and we'll pick up just to show you how to do the decreases and the final part of the dishcloth. All right, be right back. Okay, welcome back. So hopefully you've gotten your 48 stitches on your needles now. So as you can see, this is where we started. This is where we cast on. So this was our beginning. So when we did our 48 across, 48 stitches that we have, you're actually working corner to corner, okay? So when you started, you worked here, and as you went, you've expanded out, and you can see the little eyelet pattern that forms from doing those yarn overs when you're increasing your stitches. Now, we're done with that repeat row. So now we're going to move on to row 3, which is going to be your next repeat row. So what you want to do, let me just get situated here. And this is what you're going to do. And you're going to repeat this row until you have 4 stitches left on your needles, okay? So this is going to, because we made this side of the corner of the square, we're going to start to decrease to make the other half, okay? So our decrease is also going to include the yarn over to keep that eyelet pattern on the border, okay? So here's what you're going to do, and I'll do a few rows with you here, so it might, because we got 48 stitches to knit, it might take a little bit, so we'll get going on that. So you're going to knit 1, then you're going to knit 2 together. So you're going to put your needle in through, you have the 2 stitches here, start at the bottom one, and it can be a little tight, and you're going to put your needle in through knitwise through both of them. Then you're going to put your yarn over your needle and draw it through so that you're catching both, and then slide off, and that's a knit 2 together. Then you're going to do your yarn over so that we can make that little eyelet, and you're going to knit 2 together again. Because that yarn over creates a stitch, we also need to decrease again here to compensate, so that we're going to keep decreasing the one that the first knit 2 together is your decrease. The yarn over and knit 2 together is to keep it in balance, okay? And then you're just going to knit across the rest of the row. So while I'm knitting here, because I'm in English, I don't do continental. Continental supposedly is a little faster. I've tried doing it, but I can't. I have to throw my yarn. I don't just, so sometimes it can be a little slower. But I'd rather be slow and accurate than try to do something that I'm not comfortable with and possibly make mistakes or drop a stitch. Or speed isn't necessarily the best. You want to take your time, enjoy it, and have a good finished product. So if you're new to knitting and you think you're going too slow, don't worry. Speed will come later, maybe. Or you might find a pace that you're comfortable with, that you're good and accurate with your stitches and your tension, and it might take you a little longer to get a product done, but it gets done and it looks good. So don't be too hard on yourself, especially if you're just learning. So as we work across here, and I'd like to thank everybody who's been watching, subscribing and liking the videos or leaving a comment. I really appreciate it. I have been thinking about potential Christmas craft ideas. I know it's July, but some people, especially if they want to make gifts, they like to get started on things so that they can have things done on time, which is totally reasonable, especially if you're big into doing craft fairs and stuff and are looking for something new to do. So I've been trying to think of some new fun Christmassy. I'm thinking a potential crochet Christmas tree skirt, but that might be a bigger project, so we'll see. All right, we're coming up to the end here. But again, thank you for all your support. It really does mean the world. And I look forward to making some more videos for everybody. All right, so we finished that row. That is our repeat row. So now that we're back to the beginning here, we're going to knit 1, knit 2 together, and this is where we do our decrease, okay? So put your needle in through the bottom one and up through the top one so that you've got both of them on your needle for when you do the knit. So when you knit and you're bringing your yarn down through with your needle, you're grabbing both those stitches so that when you slide it off, those 2 stitches are gone. Yarn over and knit 2 together again. And this is to make the eyelet, but also to keep it in balance, okay? Because when you're making that eyelet and doing the yarn over, it causes us an increase in the stitch count. So the knit 2 together right after the yarn over keeps your stitch count in balance, okay? and then you're just going to knit to the end of the round again. So I'll do one more with you here. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, if there's something you're interested in that you're not quite sure how to do, whether it's knitting or crocheting, put it in the comment section, and if it's something I know how to do or can figure out how to do, I am more than glad to make a tutorial video for you. I'm all for helping people catch on to what they're interested in, improve their skills or learn something new. Hey, we might learn something together. All right. All right. We'll just keep on going here. And as you start getting into more and more of your decrease rows, it's going to get quicker because you won't have as many knit stitches left to do to get to the end of the round, because your number of stitches is going down every row. And this is the row you're going to repeat until you have 4 stitches left. So again, not too much to the pattern. Basically there's 2 different row repeats. So you'll repeat row 2 until you get your 48 stitches, and then you're going to repeat row 3 until you're back down to 4 stitches. So it's a fairly simple pattern to follow once you catch on to the pattern. All right, so there's the end of that row. So we're going to flip our work again. All right, so here we go. This is your repeat again. You're going to knit 1, knit 2 together. So in through, using the next 2 stitches, go through the bottom one, out through the top one knitwise, yarn over your needle, pull it through, and both of those stitches are going to slide off. Okay, then we're going to yarn over and knit 2 together again. And then we're going to just knit to the end of the row again. So that's what you're going to do at the beginning of every row, followed by knitting to the end of the row until you get to 4 stitches, okay? So why don't you put me on pause, rewind again if you have to see what we did at the first of each of those rows for the decreases, and meet me back here when you're down to 4 stitches, and I'll show you how to finish off this dishcloth. Be right back. Okay, welcome back. So if you press and play, you've got down to your 4 last stitches on your needle, okay? So this is what it looks like. We started down at the bottom down here, and then we worked our way up until we had our 48 stitches, which is the halfway mark. And then we started to do our row 3 repeat, which is the decrease, which brought us up to this point, okay? So you have 4 stitches left on your needle. So what we're going to do, and hopefully you found that fairly simple to do. Sometimes this knit 2 together can be a little tight. So what we're going to do is we're going to cast off these 4 stitches. So we're going to put our needle in as if we're going to knit, yarn over our needle, and just knit the first one as per usual. We're going to go as if we're going to knit that, but then we're going back to this first one here, and we're going to take our left needle, tuck it in underneath, and bring that up over the second stitch and let it go. Then we're going to knit the next one. So now you got your 2 stitches, and we're going to take this stitch here, put our needle in through, drag it up over the other stitch, drop it off. Last time, knit it, grab that first stitch, up and over the second one. Now you've got 1 stitch left on your needle. Cut a fairly long tail. Then what you're going to do is just fasten that off and make a knot. Give it a good tug. So then, let me just move those circular the other way. So we have our start, did our row 2 repeat up to the halfway mark, our row 3 repeat where we finished off here. And then what you can do with your yarn needle is weave these ends in, and I like to get the yarn into the middle section, so I just kind of go down and through until I can get it into the middle here, and then I just weave it in and try to hide it, and I go in through one way and then I loop back around the other way to get it good and secure. And if you can, kind of split the fibers a couple of times, because that keeps it a little tighter and less chance for it to come out, okay? And then I just trim that off. My scissors are getting a little dull. So now for the starting one, you're gonna see, and keep in mind, when you make like granny squares and stuff, you block them before you use them. You're not gonna block this because you're just gonna use this as a dishcloth, okay? So I find, for whatever reason, my finishing corner, nice and sharp. It's a corner. My starting one, a little bit of a loop, a little bit of a rounded edge to it, as you can see there. So what I like to do with my tail is I just kind of weave it in, back and forth a little bit to try to, see, I've sharpened up that corner. And then I'll just do a little knot to keep that from to keep it nice and sharp. And then I'll weave this in just like I did the other end there. Back in through, down through one of the little chains of the eyelet. Let me just get this in my hand here. And then weave it in, and then back up through a little bit. Trim it off. There you go. Now we've got not quite as rounded corner, okay? So you can see the nice little eyelets, little design on the border. It's a little bit stretchy. Remember, gauge does not matter. And you saw what I started with. This was the Bernat Handicrafter 1.75 ounce. There's what I have left. Okay, so it doesn't use quite a ball. And what I end up doing, I just save these, and after I have a few of these, I'll make another dishcloth. It might be, you know, part blue, part gray, part whatever, but I'll use up my ends to make another one. So there you have the basic knit dishcloth. And I do recommend just getting yourself a small circular double pointed needle, because it's a little easier to manage than trying to use the big straight ones for something like a project like this when you're just doing something small. All right, and maybe what I'll do is I'll put the link to the ones I ordered on Amazon. I'm not an affiliate or anything like that, but it'll show you what ones I ordered, because they were super cheap for what you got. You got the full set. So, and they're really good. They seem really good quality, like the ends, the cord makes for a smooth transfer. So yeah, so that is the basic, fairly simple knit dishcloth. Makes for a nice little, if you do up a couple and just have them kind of wrap with a nice ribbon, even with a nice like fancy bar of soap or something, like say at Christmas somebody drops in, they're like, oh, here, I brought this for you, and you're like, oh, here, I have a little something for you. You know, you can have a couple of them wrapped up, tucked away in case you happen to get a gift you weren't a little hostess gift or something you weren't expecting, and you can pass that along to somebody else, or tuck it in as a stocking stuffer or whatever. So basic knit dishcloth. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Let me know where you're watching from. I enjoy that as well. And if you have any other questions about other projects, let me know. And if there's anything you'd like to see, put that in the comments as well. So take care. Happy knitting, crocheting, whichever is your craft of choice. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.